Okay, so let's get started. My name is Harry Cecil, and this is the Hear Us, Hear Them ensemble. And we're here with the super awesome Jerod Tate. And I've practiced this, so let me try it on you. Jerod Impichchaachaaha. Really? Oh my goodness.
Nice job. Impichchaachaaha. Yeah, that's good.
All right. That's great.
I appreciate you doing that, Harry. That's
well,
cool.
It's your name, and I had to write out the IPA. I wrote out like a little rhythmic pattern. I just want to make sure that I got it right. And I love that you hold down your tribe's surname, right? House name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's very much like a surname. We have traditional house names that are still retained, and they are very much like surnames. So back in the day, like in the late 1800s, my ancestors were still, I mean, we had European surnames as well, but they were interchanged very easily. So back then I would have been called either Jerod Tate or Jerod of Impichchaachaaha. So it's almost like fun Beethoven, it's like from the house of, because that's where there's a similar circumstance, but there's a house identifier. And then we also have our clan names, which are animal names. And so my clan is Shawi, which is raccoon. And that applies a little more on the social construct, like you can't marry within your own clan, that kind of thing. You can in the same house, but if you're in different, you have to be in different clans, that kind of thing. So there's different rules that applied. So it was a little complex sometimes, but house names were like surnames. You were from that house, but of different clans.
That's really cool. Yeah. And so let me continue with this introduction. So we found your super awesome piece. We Are the Storm, and it became the title of our first concert because we were just so moved by it. Cool. And this is our first, Hear Us, Hear Them. This is our first concert offering. It will be recorded, of course, as a safety precaution, not a live audience yet because of COVID. Yeah. But what I wanted to do, before we ask you a little bit more about that, the inspiration behind that piece, is just give us a little more about your background. I mean, I read your bio. I know you're well educated, highly decorated as a composer, but just in general, just how did you get into music? What struck a chord with you, so to speak, of making sure you honor your identity in all of your repertoire, things like that?
Well, I sure appreciate that. I'll go ahead and start out and introduce myself in my language real quick. Chokma, Chin Chokmata Hatak, Sahol Chifo, Jerod Impichchaachaaha Tate, Chikashasaya, Talo Ikbisaya, Hashlaka Sayopa, Chokmashki Yakoke. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerod Impichchaachaaha Tate, and I am a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation here in Oklahoma, and I'm a professional classical composer. I live in Oklahoma City, and my tribe, the Chickasaw Nation, the reservation boundaries are in the south central part of the state. And in Oklahoma, we have 39 federally recognized tribes here. So it used to be called Indian Territory before it became Oklahoma. And it is Indian Territory. There's a bunch of Indians in Oklahoma. So, and then within Indian Territory, we have a lot of mixed tribal identification as well. And so, I mean, people are from many different tribes from the state. So there's a lot of camaraderie between the tribes and a lot of cross experience between different cultural sections that we come from. So it's really dynamic, and it's a very unique part of Indian country. Whereas around the rest of the country, you have kind of more isolated cultures and reservations. In Oklahoma, it's like a mashup, which is pretty cool. There's really neat things about that. And so anyway, so that's kind of the life that I came from, was a knowledge of many different tribes at the same time. So my father is Chickasaw, Charles is his name, and Dad professionally is a lawyer and judge. He's a tribal judge and special district judge and a lawyer. Dad graduated law school at the University of Oklahoma, and he was also counsel to our Chickasaw legislature, and he was also author to our current Chickasaw Constitution. So every tribe in the country has its own constitution because we actually have dual citizenship. So we're citizens of both our tribal nation and then also the United States. So we have our own working constitutions. And so you can see there's jurisdiction things that are unique to Indian country when you're in a state. So we have like Indian, federal, and state jurisdictions that happen at the same time. And I say all this because I grew up with this knowledge of tribal history and politics when I was a kid. And so I owe that to my father, and I'm very grateful that I have this knowledge because I know a lot about different tribal relationships around the country because of that, because of my dad's work. But Dad is also a classically trained pianist and baritone. And so I grew up with him playing classical repertoire in the house and singing. And in fact, Dad used to gig art song. He played the accordion. And so he gigged restaurants singing art songs. So it's kind of like a movie thing where you got this native kid that sings Italian art song with accordion in
That's so
restaurants back in the
cool.
50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It's neat. So I
Yeah.
kind of romanticize about that. But in fact, my dad was just in my studio for a session today. He was doing a voiceover for another thing. But dad is still performing, and he's still so both he sings and he still plays the piano. And he also does narration. So I'm very, very fortunate that we still have this great working relationship together. But so my dad and I talk Indian politics and opera in the same sentences. It's just
Hmm.
really great to have that kind of fluid conversation with him. My mother, Patricia, was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, and mom was Manx Irish. And so I'm Manx Irish on my mom's side and Chickasaw on my father's side. And mom was a professional choreographer and dancer, and they both met here in Oklahoma. So
Wow.
between the two of them, I grew up in an enormous amount of theater and dance. And so I actually have a really deep working knowledge of dance history. And I grew up in rehearsals. And then also mom studied internationally. Mom was an expert belly dancer and flamenco dancer, as well as
Oh
she
my
taught
goodness. All these
ballet and
things.
tap and jazz. And so I grew up and through all that dance medium, there's all the music that was associated with it. So I grew up with a lot of real diverse music in the dance I was exposed to with mom. So lots of traditional music from different cultures, but also a lot of modern music because she did a lot of modern dance. So it's like in the 70s when the Moog synthesizer was new, I listened to a lot of modern synth, that type of stuff. And then also like total typical classical ballet repertoire like Rite of Spring and Romeo and Juliet, and of course Tchaikovsky's ballets. So that was just all, I was just saturated in that. So with both parents, I was involved in a lot of theater. So as a result, I consider myself a very theatric and dramatic composer in my style. But it was mom who created my first opportunity to compose. I mean, my dad started me on the piano, and
Mhm.
by the time I'd been playing about 3 months, I had announced to my parents that I was to be a classical pianist. I was very serious about it. I was in. And so I went to college as a piano performance major. I went to Northwestern first as an undergrad. And then I started my graduate work in piano performance at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And that's when mom commissioned a ballet score from me. And she was doing an original ballet based on American Indian stories from the Northern Plains and Rockies. And she just turned to me and said, "Well, you're my Indian kid. I'd really like you to write my score." And I mean, I knew her works, like the back of my hand. I knew my mom's style.
Right.
But I said no. It really blew me. It's just I did not have any inclination to associate my Chickasaw identity and my classical identity in the
Mhm.
same like room. It just didn't occur to me that there would be any kind of a crossover. Mom literally was asking me to be my whole self, is what she was asking me to do. And that's pretty beautiful.
Right.
And at the time it really floored me, and I said no, but I thought I couldn't get it out of my system. It resonated.
Mhm.
So I wrote some music. I came back to her with it, and it was working. And so my first commission was a ballet from my mother. My Irish mother commissioned her Indian kid for an Indian ballet, and
Yeah.
that's how I started my career.
Yeah.
And in the process, and after the premiere, a lot of my classical colleagues and folks from Indian country had all seen this. And so the support that I got from both my native community and classical community was overwhelmingly positive. And everybody was just like, you really got to do this. And so I thought very long and hard about it. And when I went back to resume classes at Cleveland, because I had left to premiere it and open the tour and everything. I added composition to my major, and then I announced to my parents that I was to be a Chickasaw classical composer. And so I decided that I was going to just make that distinction for myself and focus on that entirely. I wanted to create repertoire that was American Indian classical repertoire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my story in a nutshell.
That's so, I mean, that's so awesome. Like you just like, I am going to chart my own path because this is my upbringing. This is all of the education that I have through the classical classroom, but also all of this other education that the classical arts has decided is not as valued. And you are now drawing more attention to it and making sure
Mhm.
that it gets its just due. And I think that's really awesome.
I'll tell you that we have a lot of heroes for that in classical repertoire. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, uh, the composers have been and are still, I mean, very heavily identifying with their ethnic and national identities. I mean, if you go back to Debussy, I mean, he was incredibly French. You know, I mean, his art songs are very folk songy, like French sing songy, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And you know, his impressionism was extremely French, and he was very nationally, you know, patriotic. You know, and especially when it came out, he didn't like Germany at all, and he was very vocal about it. So I mean, so there were these, but also if you look at all the Russian composers, I mean, they were told by the state that you will identify nationally in your works. Now they didn't have any
Mhm.
problem with that, but now of course, if you look at the different solutions that came out of it, it was really beautiful. But then you know, fast forward to today. I mean, you've got Chinnery Ung, who's an amazing Cambodian composer, and then you've got Toru Takemitsu, who was Japanese, incredibly Japanese in his writing, yet just completely classically trained. But we have that in literature as well. I mean, if you look at all the literature, all these folks from different parts of the world are in America are writing in English, but come from entirely different ethnic and national identities, but are populating, like beautifully populating. And the same thing with film, with choreography. I mean, it's really all over the place. And so I honestly find myself in like the best possible. I love that I'm alive now because I feel like I'm in so much company from so many folks from around the world who are just wholeheartedly contributing with, you know, just absolutely, you know, just head first into this. And you know, that's the best of classical, the fine arts. It's the best of the fine arts. And I believe that we as a group are a real model for how everybody's voice is precious and beautiful and has a voice
Right.
in a discipline like this, and it asks for it. You know, if you look at this, look at the history of ballet. Started in Italy and it was Italian, right? Well, then it moved over to France and Paris stole it and it became very French. And then the Russians stole it and it became
Mhm.
super Russian. And then the Americans stole it and became super American. But the thing is, the art form in it of itself asks us to bring our individual identity into it. It wants us
Yeah.
to. So folks who are born on the moon and on Mars who are going to have different identifications are going to snag at the same, and they're going to bring their own experience in it just as
Yeah.
much. So I love that. And I love that unity that it brings folks like us together. It's great. I think we're living the dream.
Certainly. And I think it's essential. And I think many schools, I think, let me phrase this accurately. I out in the professional world, there are many people like you who are doing all the great work. And I think we are pulling ourselves along very slowly in the academic setting
Oh,
about
right.
making sure we understand that we're supposed to take these trainings and then apply them appropriately to our own skill sets, our own backgrounds, our own prior knowledge. And that's okay. Like, to not, instead of trying to pigeonhole us into a very, very specific Western European, Austro-German type of perspective.
Oh,
So
well, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
look, I don't write like Beethoven, and I don't think Beethoven would want us to write like Beethoven. I think, you know, I think that's a spirit that's held true. And then, of course, as it becomes institutionalized, when anything becomes institutionalized, we have challenges. You know, that we have to reflect and look back, and you know, we can't just kind of like, you know, slide into something that restricts us. You know, so I
right.
think that these are really good, healthy, normal questions that we're asking of ourselves,
Yeah.
and what our perspective is. I think this is a very healthy human thing to do, is to reevaluate and be like, yeah, is this, you know, how are we doing this? You know,
Hmm.
this type of conversation is critical to that, I think. So,
Certainly.
mhm.
Yeah. So let's, because again, I know your time is precious and
It's cool. We're good.
you are energized and you, man, I love it. I want to just give you a word and just let you go. But let me see if I can steer you very specifically to We Are the Storm.
Sure, sure.
The first time we read it as an ensemble, we just fell in love with it. We had the choir read the poetry first to make
Mhm.
sure we just grabbed onto that. So talk to us rather, about the inspiration behind We Are the Storm, what you were thinking, what were you hearing when it was commissioned for forgive me, I forgot who the original commissioner was, but
It was
yeah.
it was a Central Bucks High School West women's choir,
Mhm.
and from Pennsylvania, and Joseph Ort is their director for that. And so, yeah, so I'll go ahead and give you a background on that. I got an email from Joseph and asking if I would be interested in a commission. He's known in the choral world. He's quite known, and he commissions a lot of new works. And so So he called and said that, they kind of have a theme about what they were doing and what I'd be interested in. I said, of course, I'm a composer. I like to compose music. So anyway, but he had also had designated the librettist. Charles Anthony Silvestri is the librettist. And I have to admit that I didn't know who he was, but I mean, like, he's Whitaker's poet. I mean,
Right.
so it's like I didn't realize that at first, and so, but I'm kind of glad,
Which
because
is okay.
yeah,
Like,
well,
we
look,
need to just
we
say
don't all
that
know each other.
more.
It's just the way that, I mean, he didn't know who I
Yeah.
was either. So, but
Right.
I felt that the fact that I didn't know that when I was first talking to him on the phone, it was just all very, very genuine. Like, there was no, like, I wasn't nervous like that, for instance, like, because that I would have been probably a little more nervous had I known a little more about that. But so they had just asked for a new work, and so Tony had, we talked on the phone, and he said his style in writing lyrics was he likes to interview the composer and just talk about just kind of certain social issues, possibly, or ethnic issues, just whatever. We just had a free flow conversation about stuff, and I just blabbed just like I did, kind of like with you. And he just took all kinds of notes. He said, "All right, I'm gonna go disappear in my cave for a little bit, and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna fire a poem back at you." And I said, "That's awesome." And the one thing that was really very, very kind of him is he said, "Now look, I'm gonna write this, and I want you to go ahead and use what you need to, not use what you need to." He didn't feel any problem with that. He said he lets his ego go after that. And I said, I mean, I think that's very generous, and I was really grateful. There were a few adjustments that I made, not very many, just a couple. A lot of it had to do with kind of like the pacing of the singing. I felt like it might be a little better to truncate this or repeat something or something like that. And that was just a few liberties that I took. But that's what happened. And so this piece came out, and honestly, it was, I mean, this was, what was the commission date on this? Was 2019. So this is kind of as things were kind of amping up, I would say, is kind of like the way to say it, before, obviously, just before COVID was coming in, and everything was really starting to really gear in high gear. And so the topic was there, and I like to address things in a kind of a universal, hopeful feeling, and they just allowed me to do that, just kind of be myself in addressing some of the turmoil and confusion that was going on. And so I like to have messages of hope, and so this is an optimistic message. And so We're the Storm is kind of like, a unified message, because everybody can be involved in that positive flow who wants to be involved, I think. So I like to be inclusive in that. So that was kind of like my vibe. And so then what happened was, I was just, okay, this is what I do, is I include native melodies in everything that I do. And this was part of why, but Joseph had called me, was for this. And so I just kind of tapped into, I thought, I want to, again, in this universal feeling, I thought I'd look at like three different tribal type songs. And one was a replica of a Zuni type sunrise song. The other
Okay.
one is also actually an inversion of a Chickasaw Garfish dance song. So I do the nerdy things. I will take melodies and invert them and retrograde them and augment and diminish intervals and things like that. So I do all that, like Bach
you,
did, or
you're
Brahms.
earning your degree.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
I mean, hey, there you go. And
That's it.
so, and then also, there was an Ojibwe round dance song that I imitated as well. Round dances are really beautiful, and socially, round dances are when generally at the powwows, when they ask everybody to come in and join, and so everybody from anywhere can go. Powwows are very open to the public in general. Sometimes there's
Oh,
private ones,
cool.
but in general, they're very open and they're very inclusive, especially when there's round dances. That's when everybody gets in like that, and so that's why I wanted that to kind of wrap it up in a canon, because it has a 3/6/8 feel.
Okay.
Really lend itself to a canon nice. So you know what I mean? So it all
Mhm.
just kind of fell into place as I was thinking about that. So that opening melody is a Zuni style opening. It's like a calling, and then when it has that rising do 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 do, that's the inversion of this Chickasaw Garfish dance song, and I just kind of
Okay.
use that as a rising thing. So those were the three types of feelings that I incorporated. So it's in three sections, kind of like the opening ethereal. Then there's one that kind of has a statement to it, like we're kind of establishing ourselves, and then it gets into the unified round sound. So that's how I kind of put that together.
I mean, that makes all the sense though, because like when you have the canon, the round,
Mhm.
and it draws you in, and then I like how it just bleeds together,
Mhm.
and the text just continues to just kind of
Yeah.
merge. And I just think that was such a clever thing, and that comes from an actual an actual native song, a native
Yep,
tradition. I think that's really
that's
cool.
straight out of that's an Ojibwe style round dance song, and
Yeah.
they have repertoires of round dances that I think are just gorgeous, and so I wrote a new one that was very similar to that. Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about this climax, lightning and thunder, lightning and thunder, and then you say thank you, like so.
Yeah.
Like just
It's a yakoke is just a word that, I mean, it's just honestly it's just a way for me to express my gratitude, and I mean I have a very deep faith in the creator, and I really believe that humans are born beautiful and brilliant and well, and we are all, children of the creator, and so that's just I like to kind of express thank you at the very end like that. So it's just kind of a gratitude that I have. And I knew that there were going to be different vocal ensembles that were going to be singing this, and so this was kind of like a pay it forward thank you to the people that were about to sing it. And again, like the thing again was like, choral music, so you've got every possible ethnicity known to man in choruses. So I knew that was coming, and I was just grateful for that opportunity to share this positive feeling with everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I thought it was, and that makes all the sense. I thought it was a nice little this is still like a very cultural like little signature at the end of just every time you sing this, whoever sings this, it's a reminder very clearly of who I am as a composer.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
So let me just add this little note at the end.
Yeah, I do have it. It is a signature. It is almost like a Rachmaninoff signature. Like he would he would use his own name as a signature in several things. So yes, I've done that in other pieces as well. But it is that, and it's combined with kind of like my general gratitude. Sometimes that gratitude is, oh gosh, I actually finished this piece.
So the thank you is to yourself, like thank you, it's over.
Yeah, I say that a little in jest, but but it's just a general just recognition of gratitude for a lot of different things. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so but back to the lightning and thunder, like what were you thinking in that moment, the grand elevation of the spreading of the not the timbre, the tessitura all of a sudden going quite high, and then just the constant marcato type of style. What were you wanting the audience to get from that?
Well, I'll tell you, one thing I really liked about Silvestri's poetry was that he was focusing on those words. And in Chickasaws are originally from the southeastern part of the United States, so like northern Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, part of Georgia, and so the elements there are quite outstanding. I mean, the forests are gorgeous. I mean, the trees are just larger than life, and so and I've been back to the homeland several times, and when I compose, I am literally in the homelands. I feel nature, I feel the elements, and so I draw on those feelings of the elements. And so the lightning and thunder part just resonated to me, and so I wanted that to feel. I love the sound of thunder. I just think it's so beautiful and gorgeous. I mean, if I was really cheesy, I'd have somebody playing a rolling thunder sound at the very end of that. Because, with the drum beat going like that and everybody singing those full chords and the piano keeping that 6/8 feeling, to me, that's that same experience of that rich thunder sound. That's how, honestly, that's exactly how I was feeling. And so that was just one of many ways that I've actually expressed that element of thunder and lightning. I just think it's so powerful and so beautiful and rich, and it makes me feel really alive and very human. So I just, so those elemental feelings are very important to me.
All right. Jamie, did you have any questions about the song as a performer? Anything that I might have overlooked?
No, I really like when we sing in the rounds in that little canon section. That's my favorite part.
It's a really satisfying feeling. Cannons are really cool. They really, really are. And I've witnessed canon singing in many, many cultures around the world. It seems to be like a human thing that resonates really, really nicely. And so, I think that can. So I appreciate you saying that. When I wrote it, I knew that's how it was going to end, and so leading up to it was a really satisfying feeling when I was writing, and I decided to go ahead. I mean, I took little notes, but I started at the beginning. By the time I got to the round, I was like, here we go. This is where
and it very much feels like that once you get there. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it has this, and I'm not trying to make it sound simplistic, but it has this catchiness to it that after the song is over, you're just like do 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 do, and you just walking around like with it. And so I don't know if that was intentional, but that was certainly it's an earworm, so to speak.
Well, it was for me too. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was just kind of relaying, what I was already anticipating, so, and it's again, you can like the chorus can really just get into that, and it's just you can get lost into it. I mean, so and it goes for a little while. I mean, I thought about truncating, and it has been truncated, but I don't think it has the same effect. So I think the full length is good, and it could use maybe a third, but maybe that way too many times. But hey,
I thought it was a cool effect too. I agree. Absolutely. And I think around in general, it should have a second cycle. I think
agreed.
in general, cycle.
Yeah, you just got to kind of.
Or it just doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have one more composition question, and I want to go another way. So the duet part specifically, storms gather water and fire, stirring the earth, lifting it higher. And you went into harmony there. This is at measure 42, with the pedal tone or the drone sound of the rest of the choir, water and fire, lifting us higher. So talk to us about what you were thinking there about it being a duet, and then that duet kind of swaying back and forth in melodic contour.
Well, yes. You just kind of described it. I mean,
full disclosure, I have a choral lit final, so I'm getting some super academic mode in this week.
Oh,
so
no,
forgive my
that's
language.
Great. I mean, basically, I was just having. That was me just really enjoying the textural things that you can do that's very unique to chorus. And I will say this. Okay, I'm half Irish, and I love Irish music. And one chorus that really resonates with me is Anuna. They're an Irish group. Michael McGlynn is their music director. They were the original chorus for Riverdance, actually.
Oh, cool.
And they have several albums, and I follow them on YouTube, and I'm always buying their new stuff and everything like that. But I really enjoy that Irish straight tone, really suspended static textures that can come out of that type of writing. I'm really drawn to that. To me, it's also very elemental, but it's that suspended feeling that's really cool. And that's why, for instance, at 42, the pedal tone is on the high D, but the melody is low. You normally can, but there's also the pedal tone. There's okay, so there's a pedal tone it's okay. Hang on. So you've got the drone with the half notes, right? And those half of that, so that's kind of like a layered drone with a chorus and the piano, right? And they're just saying those words in the background. And then you've got the tune, but then you've got a pedal of the tune. That's kind of reverse Renaissance music, where you've got the descant on the top and the pedals below. Well, I put the best descant on the bottom. And so I was just kind of just enjoying experimenting with different ways of doing all that. So honestly, I just was brainstorming. What do I want to do? And what was I feeling? And that's what I came up with, was just this. It's a really simple idea, and it's not. I mean, I do want it to be also very clear. And it just happens for a few bars. And then it goes, the drones continues on the bottom, and then we switch up the duet. So it's kind of like a little intro of the two voices, and then they do, an echoey type of a thing as well. So that was just more interest. And of course it was following the words as well. So it's like, even though you're saying water and fire, I was kind of going reverse of those words. Like water and fire could be very explosive type of sounds, but I was painting back on it. Do you see what I mean? I was doing the other direction, which is something composers and artists will do sometimes. It's like, go the reverse direction. So I was messing with a lot of those ideas all at the same time, and this is what it settled into. So, and then finally when they're talking about a storm, its beauty, that's when it's like, and the beauty part, that's when we're getting the echo thing, that's my romanticism coming out there. So some static, a little romantic, I was messing with the descant versus the drone, that kind of thing. Just all those things were just kind of playing in my mind.
Okay. Because in that section, to me, it with that, the pedal tone and the foundation of having the treble voices sitting in their lowest part of their range, it sounded like it was the growth section. So you had, I don't know. So here's my symbolism. That because you had the high pedal, it was an open interval. that it was this nice, almost like the sun, and this is the storm, the water and the fire, and now we're starting to work together, and we're starting to build something up a little bit more, and now we're growing out of this. Destruction is the wrong word, but after this storm, after the lightning, after the water and the fire, and it's going to grow into something, and it's going to be beautiful. And then we are lightning, we are thunder, done. And then all of a sudden you have, like, to me, so to speak, that's the end of the song, and then the next part is like look at what we've achieved because we went through it. So to speak.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Yep.
Okay.
I appreciate that interpretation.
No.
It's fabulous. Well, I mean, look at this. I can't even tell you how satisfying this is to hear another musician talk about it, because honestly, I'm way in the game when I'm doing it, but I'm not necessarily always able to totally articulate what I'm feeling. And so some of it's articulated, some of it's just organic, impulsive, that kind of thing. But to hear somebody else talk about how it affected them is really gratifying. It really is. And people, and just like me, it's like if we're playing repertoire, well, every instrumentalist and every soloist, it has their own way of doing it, which is the way it should be, actually. And it's great. That's what makes repertoire great, is when you hear somebody else play, you're like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it like that. Oh, that's really cool. So to hear different angles on it, it just makes it even more important to me that I've heard you say that like that. And so now I may turn to somebody and say, well, actually, somebody told me blah, 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 and so I don't know. It's really, really satisfying to hear another person's interpretation of the music that I wrote. Very satisfying to hear that.
It's a special treat. I mean,
I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, you're welcome. We spend our days, Jamie and I, just studying the past, studying dead composers. So we don't get the opportunity that much to really discuss someone's vision right in front of them. So this is, I mean, it's a special treat in general. Like, so, and thanks for making yourself so accessible.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. One thing, if I can add another little positive spin on this, never in history have we had so many living composers. It's really uncanny and it's exciting. And also, never have we been able to hear so many different types of music. And so the kinds of composing coming out is just off the charts diverse. It's unbelievable and genuine, very authentic. I mean, people are people. People are genuine people. And so when people are just like really authentically embracing it, the stuff that people are writing is, I think, phenomenal. You go to a movie, and anymore the orchestral music is every possible type of old and new music you can ever imagine. It's all in movie scores now. And so it's like the sky's the limit. And so I love this opportunity, not just for me, but also because I'm one of thousands and thousands of composers from multitudes of backgrounds in the United States alone. That's just here. Right. And so, I mean, I say, let's be like a kid in a candy shop and just have a blast. And hopefully this is encouraging people, especially just, obviously we're just all people. I'm just like you are, writing music. So there's no real mystery. I'm just focused on this, Right. So I like to have this conversation, and hopefully it inspires people to be like, God, there's lots of different composers like that. So to look for that now, I'm really hoping that this helps inspire people to look around the whole composition population. There's a lot going on, a lot of really, really good music being made right now.
That's so brilliant. That was going to be coming out of We Are the Storm. I was going to ask. So as compositions and diversity go, how do you feel about the state of, and then you went into it anyway. That was going to be my leading question. And
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about it. There's so much being said and so much wonderful. I love it. There's so much great music being made right now. It's just awesome. I mean, I love Spotify because every once in a while I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's just so cool to be able to do that. I couldn't do that in the 80s. I mean, I was much more limited. Right. So anyway, I think it's, like I said, I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I love it. And I'm very, very excited about all the new music that's coming out.
All right. Well, I know your time is limited. So can I leave you with this one last question? Yes. We are a choral ensemble, at least for now. Mm-hmm. So my question very specifically will be about what projects do you have in the fold or in the queue, so to speak, that might be vocal specific or relevant? Opera, absolutely. Is celebrated too, but tell us what you're working on.
Well, I was just talking to Jamie about that before he came on. In fact, I'm premiering a new opera in March next year, And so this is a new opera that's in the Chickasaw language about one of our Chickasaw legends, about how we obtained our shell shaking. It was part of our culture. So it's a beautiful 2-act. It's like the perfect 2-act story. I love it because this little girl becomes the unexpected hero, and she goes to the forest to go find herself, and she learns all this stuff and brings this culture back to her village. It's just like this really cool hero's journey. And so, and it's sung in the Chickasaw language, and all the costume design is by a Chickasaw costume designer.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. We do have a few native vocalists who will be part of the cast as well, which is really great. And I was talking to Jamie about how we are going to be farming this out to other groups and ensembles, and I would love to be hitting very, very good conservatories that are focused on opera, such as yours. So that's one big thing coming out. And then I've also got there's the Pro Music of Seattle is doing a new choral work. Verdigris Ensemble, Roomful of Teeth is doing I'm doing a new piece with them. So actually there's a lot of choral stuff, and in different tribal languages. So for my neighboring tribes are going to have, I'm using their languages as well. And I've been doing that for quite some time with many different tribal languages. So that's a big passion, is bringing our tribal languages up to the same arena as French and German and
yeah.
Thing. So I have a lot of choral stuff coming up in the next couple of years.
Okay.
I'm really thrilled.
I'm a nerd, I'm academic, so I'm going to ask it. Is there an IPA chart or an IPA manual that's developing so folks who don't have the honor of having you on a Zoom can...
Every piece that I have has a pronunciation chart, and the really good news is that all of our tribal dictionaries have gotten even more and more precise, and you can pick up a dictionary from pretty much every tribe now, which is really, really great. And also a lot of them are quite English based in their basic phonetic, because it's a lot of people who speak English that translate. And then you've got glottals and nasals and some these kinds of things that are added to it that are quite familiar already to vocalists. And so vocalists have a really easy time singing the native languages that I presented. It's been a pretty easy thing. And of course, this is what y'all do. It's your jam. I mean, you can sing Chinese and Russian. You can definitely pick up American Indian languages and do the same thing. There's the same rules that will apply in a lot of them. The Osage will have, well, not Osage, the Quapaws have like some dots on theirs, and some of the Lakotas have some newer things that they've added to fill in some of the real details of some of the pronunciations. And so the dictionaries have cleaned up a lot, but they are there. And I always provide pronunciation guides in the pieces that I write as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I love nerding out like that on languages. And again, it's like with vocalists, it's like, oh yeah, it's just like it's great. That's your bread and butter. It's fabulous.
As long as we have the recipe, we can cook it. Like we can bake the cake. We just yeah. So I love that you supply us with everything we need to give a great performance.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you so very much, Jerod Tate. This has been a great conversation. I hope to hear from you again soon, and we will let you know how this super awesome work will go. I think they're going to listen to this video, they're going to watch this video, and they're going to be inspired even more so for Saturday.
I look forward to it, and make sure and keep me updated on everything so I can like blast it all over the socials and provide all the links and stuff like that.
Thank you so much.
I do that with, I really am in high gear with that, because we're really trying to help elevate each other. So just make sure I've got all that basic info that I can blast everything with, and make sure I do it like usually 2 days before the concert comes up, so it's fresh in people's minds. So just make sure and hook me up with all the details on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific.
All right, this has been great. Thank you so much.
This is awesome. It's so much fun. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. This is lots of fun.
Indeed.